The woman kindly donated her bone marrow, but was later sued by the patient's family. It all started a year ago. The woman and her husband were not wealthy. They regularly donated and volunteered. Her bone marrow match was also on file at the hospital. One day the woman received a call from the hospital, informing her that a leukemia patient needed a bone marrow transplant. Her blood type was a perfect match. The hospital asked if she would be willing to donate. Hearing that the patient's condition was critical, the woman agreed without hesitation. When she arrived at the hospital, the elderly woman immediately grabbed her hand, urging her to proceed with the surgery as soon as possible. The doctor quickly instructed the nurse to take her for an examination. However, the elderly woman suddenly changed her expression, claiming that if the examination continued, her son would die on the operating table. She urgently insisted on proceeding with the surgery immediately. The woman understood the family's anxiety and assured them that she regularly underwent health checkups, so there shouldn't be any issues. The doctor reassured and proceeded with the surgery. However, during the surgery the woman suddenly experienced massive blood loss. Her life was in danger, but it would take 20 minutes to bring the required O-negative blood. The doctor asked the family if anyone could donate blood. The patient's sister remembered that their mother had the same blood type, but the mother firmly denied it. Anyone could tell that the family didn't care whether the donor lived or died. Thankfully, the hospital had backup plasma, which prevented a dispute. After the surgery, both patients survived the critical period, and the patient recovered health. She was able to leave the hospital shortly after. However, the elderly woman showed no gratitude, and instead made things difficult for them. She took the red envelope that the sister had prepared for them, and gave them a few rotten eggs and a 5 yuan lottery ticket. The woman and her husband didn't expect anything in return, so they happily accepted the eggs. But to their surprise, the elderly woman wasn't satisfied with just that, and began to stingily treat her son as well. The next day the doctor called her into his office, hoping the husband could stay under observation for 7 days, to ensure no post-surgery infections or rejections. To her surprise, the elderly woman pointed her finger at the doctor, calling him a quack. She argued that since her son had successfully undergone the transplant, there was no need for additional hospital fees. The doctor reluctantly agreed, but advised her not to let her husband eat spoiled or undercooked food, as it could cause a relapse of leukemia. Before he could finish, the elderly woman interrupted, saying that the elders in her village ate leftovers every day and were still living well at 90. With that, she left in a huff. A year passed, and the elderly woman's son had recovered. However, one day after dinner he suddenly collapsed. Meanwhile, the woman had successfully become pregnant, a child she and her husband had longed for over 5 years. She was extremely cautious, fearing any complications. Then the woman received a call from the doctor, informing her that the leukemia patient she had donated bone marrow to had relapsed, and the condition was now more serious. A second stem cell transplant was needed. At this point, the woman was already pregnant. If the transplant went ahead, it could harm the child, but the woman couldn't bear to watch the patient's child die in front of them. After much thought, she decided to cover all the treatment costs, hoping the patient could recover. However, when she met the elderly woman immediately grabbed her hand, eagerly asking her to proceed with the transplant. When she learned that the surgery couldn't be performed, the elderly woman suddenly turned hostile. In an attempt to force the woman, she pulled out a knife from her bag, screaming at her furiously.